Happily, I'm bowing in. So, John, uh, I'm so glad you did this presentation. I knew you were the perfect one to do it, and I was right. uh, okay, in terms of our lineage, can you connect the dots there? Uh,
Okay.
how does he relate to us, our lineage?
Well, let me. I think Alina kind of share the chart I put together on our lineage. Let me bring it up here, so you can find it. Okay, so you can share screen here. Okay. Okay. So this is a chart about our lineage that I formatted a different way to fit this screen. So basically the same that Alina shared earlier. So if we start way back to the Buddha, we know that Mahakassapa is one of the famous disciples of Buddha through the flower sermon. So he's recognized as the first Zen patriarch. And then, the generation later, probably back then, there's not many masters, Zen masters. So there are history that they can trace back here through all the generation. You can see some of the known master in the past, Avasoga, Nagarjuna. So those are the well-known master in the past. Vasubandhu. And then through the 28th generation is Bodhidharma, where he's the first Chinese Zen patriarch. And then from Bodhidharma, it starts the Chinese Zen tradition through the sixth patriarch, which is Huinan. Okay, if you look at the years, Master Tangho year was around 200-300 in the common era, so it's slightly before Bodhidharma. So Bodhidharma going through the land route to China. Master Tangho was inherit the tradition from India. Whoever the master traveled by sea to Vietnam back then did that. So in the tradition, I think Master Tangho suddenly established some lineage there and they start fan out there. But from what I understanding, that line probably doesn't propagate all the way down into today. So because probably some of the master doesn't take student, down the road. So that lineage doesn't continue. The This lineage from Bodhidharma continue on to these kind of well-known master until the 11th generation. Lante is the Chinese word. Vietnamese call him Lante. I think it's generally known as Linh Chi. So Linh Chi is a very well-known lineage. It starts mushroom out to various lineage. So when it goes to Japan, it becomes Rinzai. So when it goes to Vietnam, because it starts mushroom out here, so it's hard to track exactly the line of master. We don't have much information until the 35th generation method. Liu Quan, he's also established a very common lineage called Liu Quan, and this starts mushroom now all over Vietnam, and some of the master migrate to the state now. most of them belong to Liu Guan, but they also consider there are straight lineage from Lin Chi, which is Lam Te here. So Master Liu Guan is a very well-known master, and from his generation, it's mushroomed out all over the country. And to our DTO, which is the fourth generation. So you can relate here if you straight through, starting counting from the Lin Chi Lam Te lineage, we are the fourth generation. So it's more connected through this line than the line of the master Tang Hoi. His tradition starts there, but he going probably propagate out through a different line, and then some of those lines then continue to today's, and there's some of the line I've from, I'm not sure, I merged into some other lines. There still existed now in North Vietnam, but there are some other tradition there, and not through this lineage. So in relation with the fourth, I think Thầy Chí Hoàng is the 43rd, and from what I read in the Plum Village, Thích Nhất Hạnh is the 42nd generation. So if you can look it up, in the Plum Village, I think you can see the documentation there also. So here I also have some picture. So Mahakassapa is the very first Zen, is the famous disciple of the Buddha. Master Tang Ho, you can see his statue around to 300 in the Common Era, and then Bodhidharma. This is the sixth patriarch, Master Huineng. This is a drawing of Master Lam Te Lin Chi. So he's the 11th, and then Master Liu Guan 35. So he's very well known, and his lives are well documented. So we all know that he's the 35th limit, and then each master generation later, they just remember what generation they are on, but because they are mushroom, too many to track the exact, all the master to you. So we just know, when the master said, okay, he's from this generation, that we know. For example, Master Chi Huang is the 43rd. So probably he learned from his master back in Vietnam. His master is like the 42nd, and so on. So we remember, and when we start transmitting down, each generation kind of remember which generation of the lineage they're belonging to.
John?
Thank you.
Yes.
One question. I remember that Tri Huan went to Plum Village to help Thich Nhat Hanh write the last book on the history of Vietnam, Buddhism, Vietnam. I wonder, in that 3-volume set, I know that Tri Huang never got to do it. I wonder if it was that for the 3rd volume of that 3-volume set that he was going to be involved in. Have you talked to Ty about that?
No, I just found out the 3-set book last week when I started digging into the history, when Thích Nhất Hạnh wrote this book. So it's fairly new to me, and I got a soft copy of that in Vietnamese. So probably I'll read more into detail and find out, because that book was published in Paris around 1978, the 3-set volume.
Hi, I'd like to ask a question. First of all, thank you. This was amazing. So much history. I really appreciate it. Looking at the map, I traveled extensively in Asia, and I see some parts of, and maybe you don't know the answer for this, but I see some parts of what you consider as China to originally be Tibet. Is that information that you found in books now, or is that the how I know that some parts of Vietnam were very much influenced by China, obviously, so I'm wondering if because of that influence the Vietnamese see it as China sees it and not as world history actually is. Sorry if it's a little bit of a difficult politically charged question. Thank you.
I think back in the late 80s, early 2000, after the Vietnam War, the Vietnam country is at peace, so there are more efforts in studying about history. And during that efforts, also, historians around the world, from France, from other countries, start, digging, because in peacetime, it's much easier to go and study all the artifacts. That's why I found the book about the springhead of the Eastern civilization. And I think that in those years, there is a movement to correct some of the misinformation or wrong information. So so that's why I've found, and actually one of the sightings they have in there is one of the published from National Geography about some artifact they found way back about 5,000 BCE that proves that the race, the Viet Red, back then known as Giao Chi, was able to plant rice. And it's not as the China people claim that those two officials sent out to reach. So a lot of those corrections being made recently. So, I don't know all the details, but probably you dig up those references because China is big. And then even with Tibet, way back in those years, we're all tribals. They're not a clear nation yet. So, once after the Three-Nation War, China kind of claimed the whole area become China. Even the Vietnamese tribal in the south, they also claim that it's part of China, also with Tibet nowadays. So that was the history back then. But, you have to dig more in detail to see, who's right, who's wrong. And certainly with today's, all the historian with the artifacts, they be able to verify, the facts versus whatever in history book.
Thank you.
John, thank you so much for such a wonderful presentation of the history. It's quite confusing, and as much as I have tried to understand all the maps and it was very, very difficult in the past. So thank you so much. You have opened a little bit better understanding in my head on in that regard.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
I got trouble too. So the geolocation names in Vietnamese I'm all familiar with when I read the Vietnamese copy, but when I read the English copy, I say, what is this?
Yes, and what I would like to ask though is, in your opinion, based on the teachings of Master Tang Hoi, how is meditation an instrument? How what is his view and presentation of meditation? What is the emphasis?
Yeah, I think it is mainly the main focus is the same. You try to clear your mind and, practice those stages, overcome all the hindrances, practice those stages to go to like the first jhana, the second jhana in that progression, even though the means for the people to practice at those time and in our time, according to, in our time, we know all the knowledge about how the brain works, or the physiology around our bodies. So those kind of help to our mind to concentrate. And the teaching of Master Tang Ho, he had to use whatever mean available to people back then, what people can relate to achieve those concentrated mind.
I have Ruth bowing in. I have kind of a technical question, I guess. I noticed in one of the parts when he was talking about the mind, he said, when the whole mind, including the conscious mind and the unconscious store consciousness, has been cleared of all impurities, it is very bright. I imagine in that comment he is talking about the fully awakened mind. Then this is kind of my question, because as we have learned from other readings of Thich Nhat Hanh even, that the store consciousness houses all aspects of the universe, including the impurities. So when he said that once the impurities are cleared of the store consciousness, my question is, I guess, is he meaning at that moment of enlightenment? I mean, he must be, is what where my thinking went, because the store consciousness is literally the store consciousness of everything, the good, the bad, the neutral, and it doesn't in and of itself, it is the store consciousness. So it doesn't discriminate what comes into it. So that, I guess, is my question, John, is in that part, is he talking, I presume he is talking about the fully awakened mind. And that was, it was when he was talking about the jhanas, and he kind of went off on a little bit of a tangent. But anyway, that's what I'm bringing up.
Yeah, from my understanding, reading this book, Master Thich Nhat Hanh also mentioned that during Master Tang Ho's period, the mind-only school haven't really found yet. So the concept of the store consciousness, is not as documented today, even though through the writing of Master Tang Ho, he kind of indicated toward the store consciousness concept. But during his time, that concept is not generally known yet. Even though when you meditate and reach like the fourth jhana state, you kind of know it. Because from various reading, when you reach that kind of very high concentrated state, in all the material I read, people kind of see some sort of light. So when people describing, those kind of a light vision, you can imagine probably they have reached a very high concentrated mind level. Whether he reached a state of enlightenment yet, we don't know. So that's all my take and understanding from this reading.
Yeah, and that brings to light this whole, it points again to the understanding that this is an evolution of thought. And like you said, at that point in time, and thank you for that, at that point in time, that concept of the stored consciousness was not something that had really strongly formulated yet. I know it does not carry back into the Theravada. The stored consciousness was something that developed later. So yeah, thank you for that.
Jeff bowing in. John, just thank you. This was just a wonderful presentation. You know, I have a question for you kind of personally. For me, you know, having European blood ancestors, to your presentation to understand better my spiritual ancestors now is, I, you know, find just very fulfilling, makes me very happy. So thank you very much for that. I'm just wondering for you, you know, it's wonderful that you're able to read the Vietnamese and the English and help make those connections for us, and all you've done with kind of the history and the timelines and everything is just great. I'm just wondering for you, being closer to also not just spiritual ancestors, but blood and cultural ancestors, how is this journey for you to kind of go back and find these paths in this history?
Yeah, I think in my early years, I mostly kind of belong to the Confucius Taoism line rather than Buddhism. And by probably about 15 years ago when I started, well, even though my roots, you know, when as a kid, the family went to the temple every week, especially during holidays, the major Buddhist events. But I didn't start learning into the Dharma until about 15 years before. Well, I guess I'm lucky that I can read all the Vietnamese and the English materials related to the history of Buddhism. There are a lot of Vietnamese commentaries in Buddhism written by master in the past that the Western people haven't got access to. Even books written by Thich Nhat Hanh, there are few books that I've read that haven't been translated. So hopefully some of those through, you know, all these traditions, so when we start grow and curious about, you know, our Buddhist ancestors, we'll learn more about those writings and be able to translate so that, you know, the Western culture kind of know more about, you know, all this history.
Thank you. I feel my spiritual roots growing. Thank you.
We have a couple more minutes for any more questions or discussion.
This is Dave. I'll bow in for a second. I just want to really express my gratitude to you, John, for everything that you've just given us. I always love the kind of the deep dive stuff into the more ancient history, and something in one of your answers a few minutes ago, you mentioned about how in Tibet they had not quite become a nation yet. They were still more like tribes. And that sort of thing reminds me of how hard it can be to sort through and even remotely know some of this history and different lineages and so forth, and how, you know, different things have transformed over time. You know, the lifestyles, the cultures of people, the languages, the various tribes, nations, kingdoms, all those different things. As Elena said a little bit ago, it can be very confusing at times. So what you've done, especially with the graphics that you put in the slide deck. Incredible resource to help try to keep all that a little more straightened out. And then there was another thing, and I didn't expect this to happen, but Ruth's question actually prompted something for me, and about the storehouse and that sort of thing. And I randomly found a quote from a practice book that's a favorite of mine, where, and I don't know if this will help or hurt any of the question there for Ruth or any of the other stuff, or how it relates back to Tang Hoi's kind of pre-Yogacarric stuff. But in commentaries on Vasubandhu's 30 verses, there's a discussion point here that the storehouse is transformed from being the place or process whereby our conditioning manifests and is stored, into a vast mirroring wisdom that directly knows and shows the world. And to me, that kind of sounds like that brightness that was mentioned a minute ago. You know, could be pointing at the same sort of thing experientially. And then another quote from the same commentary is, store consciousness transformed at the root, the great mirror wisdom, does not taste the moment in terms of a self with needs, but as a vast, unknowable, infinitely connected thusness. So that just came up to me, and I grabbed the book and found the quotes real quick so I could read it out exactly as it is here. But anyway, having said that, John, deepest of gratitude for what you shared with us.
This is Sylvia bowing in. Wow, John, what an impressive presentation. This is the first time I actually heard you do a Dharma talk. This is my second year of the DTO program, so I'm pretty new to this. I used to log on because I want to practice with other Sanghas, and I didn't realize that this is how beneficial it is to just sit here and listen to all these advanced topics. And actually, my next Saturday is my presentation of the second part of the Tree Enlightenment. And John, may I have your permission and a copy of that slide number 6, the timeline? We can actually use that to pass out as a handout.
Yeah, actually, I'll send the whole slide deck out, and then Elena will distribute to everyone.
No, but may I have permission to steal your slide number 6?
Oh, sure. You can use whatever.
My presentation. But anyway, my point's very short. I just want to let everybody know, and I hope that other people that in just the DTO as a Sangha, from like myself, if they have a chance to actually attend or be observant to these national session like this, it's so beneficial, because now it actually opened my mind more, and I can actually bring information back and understand my topic more. And so I'm more curious now. Also, there's a question referring to bilingual. I am also Vietnamese, and I was my last Saturday was my presentation on the Tree of Enlightenment, part 1, and I found a book that was like bilingual. So I was thinking, oh, I couldn't really understand the English version because all the technical terms. Remember, John? I bought the bilingual. Oh my God, even more confusing, because I found out that it is not a language, it is the terminology. So anyway, it's just fascinating. So I just wanted to say thank you again for having this national DTO Zoom meetings. It actually helped me so much to learn on my 4-year DTO. Thank you. Sylvia Bauer now.
Well, actually, I have a question for all the people here. In the book, he said that the language of Vietnam is classified as Austroasiatic. I looked up Wiki, I still couldn't understand that word. All we know about the Vietnamese language is we are like monosyllable language. But the word here, Austroasiatic, I tried to wiki it up. I look at the explanation, I still couldn't understand what this word means.
Why don't you share that word with us when you share your PowerPoint presentation, then everybody can do some research and find out. How about that?
Okay.
That'd be fun. Okay, John has the last word.
Oh, Lord. Okay.
1 second. Hello.
Yes, Elena's going to have the last word.
No. Theo wants to participate.
Yes, thank you. Tell about
Theo, sorry.
Sorry, I do have one comment and one question, and I'll keep it brief. I'll try to keep it brief. I think the comment in reference to the to that brightness and the wholesome and unwholesome seeds in our stored consciousness could also possibly relate to non-defiled and non-immaculate, right? Neither increasing or decreasing. In other words, that those seeds are all bright, no mud, no lotus. That's another way to look at that. I just wanted to offer that, and then I do have a question. It fascinates me because that. And thank you, John. I'm sorry, I should have started out with that. That was fantastic. That was really great. And I'm also very visual, so I need the maps too. So that was really, really helpful. So, as what we've been taught in our lineage, how came from India into China from the north, right? And has always been considered the #1 Zen patriarch. And in your presentation, you say that Tang Hoi was a couple of generations before him, and was already developing the Zen tradition, influenced by Confucianism and Taoism, which we understand that was also the influence in the north, right, for Bodhidharma, the influence of Taoism, and it didn't necessarily come from the route from India, because it was his father who came through that route, but it was really Tang Hoi who developed the Zen tradition. So to be clear, what we're saying is that even though these traditions were separate, that this developed in Vietnam, and that we can kind of is it right? Is it correct to say that he was not acknowledged as the first patriarch of Zen, and that Zen, part of the development of Zen happened in that area there, in northern Vietnam? That's my question. I know it's probably complex, and if for the sake of time, we can jump on the phone afterwards, if that's too long of an answer. Thank you. Okay,
to address that, I think if you look at the first Zen, who is Mahakassapa, so if you look that as a tree growing out, so there are some branches. So if you look at all the leaves might not connected to something, but they're all connected to the root of the top. So the Tang Hoi Zen path slightly different than the Chinese first patriarch. Even though if you trace back to the top, they all merge back to Mahakassapa. So that's the way I looked at it, and then because of the time and the route, it being migrated and brought to Vietnam in the different timeline, different path, even though they're all the same Zen tradition starting from Mahakassapa.
I think the way I would understand it is that if you look at it from the point of view of Chinese Buddhism, Bodhidharma is the first patriarch. If you look at it from the point of Vietnamese Buddhism, Tang Hoi should be looked at as a potential first teacher.
And also the Vietnamese master, which name skips my mind right now, who died. He immigrated to the West, and he died young, like around 56. Who wrote Zen philosophy, Zen practice. Basically says that Zen, even though Bodhidharma was lauded as the first patriarch of Zen, it actually goes all the way back to the Buddha himself, which is only one step away from Mahakashyapa. I'll that book is right on my shelf. I'm looking for it, but I'll share that with you in a second or later.